Woo! I'm channeling my inner Ric Flair today. It's like we have a Royal Rumble that's about to go down. Are you ready for this, Heather?
Rumble!
I'm pretty sure we're not going to have any viewers because most of them will be on the program, which is fantastic. So before we get into that, for anyone who is new that might have just logged in and is watching this broadcast, this is How to CPCU. We are put on by volunteers from the CPCU Society. I am Matt. This is my partner in crime, Heather. I always forget which way, that way. Partner in crime, Heather. And we are here every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern to talk about the CPCU Society, the designation, all the value, the good stuff, everything that it can add to your professional career and bring to you as an insurance professional. So we have a big one this week. Before we get rolling, remember, like, comment, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, retweet, get this out there, and help us with the algorithm so that more people can get this broadcast and see what we're all about as CPCUs and as a society. Are you buckled in, Heather? Are you ready to roll with this one?
I'm ready to go. I'm putting on my seatbelt. This is gonna be fun.
It is. It most certainly is. So this week we have our favorite. We're going to have a group broadcast where we are talking about our favorite annual meeting moments of yore. Okay, pre-COVID, back when we could all get together like a big, crazy, dysfunctional family and have fun together. We are going to be talking about our favorite moments from past annual meetings. So I have like a laundry list of people to introduce, and we're probably going to have more because I had tons of RSVPs. By the way, if you're watching live and you're an invitee to come like on the program and give your favorite annual meeting moments, I did email out a link for you to get to the backstage area so that we can get you on live. But without further ado, so far, here's who we got. We got the infamous Mike K coming to us from tropical Chicago, Illinois today. Holding down the fort in Florida, we got the infamous Abby Clow. How are you, Abby?
Hey, everyone. I'm great. How are you?
Very good. Very good. We have the home state of drying out, I think is what it is now called, Texas, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Precious, how are you, Precious?
I am wonderful. Better now that I'm here with this group. You guys lift me up, man.
There is an empty police blotter somewhere, I'll tell you that much. The FBI is going to show up. They're going to pull all the posters off the wanted wall in the post office and come looking for us. And so far, last but certainly not least, in my neighbor to the east, in beautiful New York City, Martin Ridgers. How are you, Martin?
Well, thank you. Good to be here with all of you.
Awesome.
Now, do we have to stick to CPCU events, or are there other events that we can bring up?
If you're talking about our extracurricular activities outside of official CPCU events, no. I don't know. that might we might get kicked off of YouTube or Twitter. I think that might happen. And I do think I saw Sharon Coaches, who's trying to get in. So hopefully we could get her in as well into this motley crew. But so I want to start with you, Mike, being someone who has to get out of here on a certain time frame, who is in the process of finishing his first of 2 MBAs, which is fantastic. Round of applause. Today is the last class. So, but I will give the stage to you to begin with. What is like 1 or 2 of your most favorite annual meeting memories of past years?
So, in deference to Martin and you, Matt, I'm going to talk about the extra stuff, not the stuff that happened sort of between 8 and 5. You know, one of the things that happens at these meetings, and it happens at the summit, leadership summit, is sort of this opportunity to go to the presidential suite.
Yes.
Some of these are infamous, and sadly, there's 2 of them that can be attributed to me, which I'm not going to talk about. Because they both happened in San Antonio. That's all I got to tell you. And one of them, there were 60 people in the presidential suite, and security came twice to tell us to be quiet. I had nothing to do with that. I wasn't even in the room.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. We'll go with that story.
I'm going to stick to annual meetings. So I'm not going to name names because some of these people may be dialing in or hear this at some point in time. But there was, I have 2 stories I want to share. At a particular annual meeting, there was a certain society president who had this presidential suite in this hotel, right? And sort of these gatherings in the presidential suite became sort of infamous. That would go on for hours. I mean, 4 o'clock in the morning, and there were still people in the suite, and then like we all had to go perform the next day, right? At 8 o'clock. So this one particular society president decided that he knew that was going to happen, so he booked a separate room down the hall so that he could go down the hall and sleep while they were trashing the presidential suite. I can't remember what annual meeting, because it's, I think this is 25 years for me, and I've been to 22 of them. They're all a blur. Alcohol has a lot of effect on that, but the one that was most infamous to me was a certain society president, who will go unnamed, the annual meeting was in Las Vegas. So if there's any historians on, Martin knows what I'm talking about already. Don't say the name, Martin, please. Stay muted. But anyway, so this particular society president, at the Caesar, it was at Caesars, and there are 2 giant towers there, right? And one of the towers, the penthouse of one of the towers, was the presidential suite, and that's where this particular society president was staying. And so the word got around that people were invited to come up. It was like the 22nd floor. And so myself and a few other vagabond CPCUs were sort of milling around in the casino, and we decided, hey, let's go to the presidential suite. So we came around the corner to go up there, and there was a partition wall, and there was a very large man sitting in a chair with a clipboard in the opening of this partition wall. And so we walked up, walked up to go through. He said, excuse me, what's your name? I'm like, Mike Cassoni. He's looking through, flips the page. You're not on the list, sir. Oh, what? You're not on the list, sir. I'm sorry. Okay. So as we're walking away, the president and CEO of the institutes is coming in the same direction. He says, hey, Mike and vagabonds, where are you guys going? Well, we tried to get upstairs, but we're not on the list. Oh, okay. Come with me. I figured I'm with Pete Miller, president of the institutes, right? He's the guy paying for the whole thing, ultimately, right? So we walk up with Mr. Miller, and the gentleman says to him, what's your name? Pete Miller. You're not on the list, sir. Well, try Peter Miller. Maybe I'm under Peter. No, sorry, you're not on the list, sir.
You're fired.
So Pete leans in like this, and he said, "I'm the guy paying for this.
Justin, no.
I'm paying for this." And he's like, "Oh." He shows him his card. "Oh, go right ahead. And have your friends come along too."
Yeah.
You get in the elevator, and Pete's fuming at this point. He's like, "How the heck am I not on the list? I'm the guy paying."
Yeah.
We get up to the 22nd floor. The door opens. There's a hallway, and there's a door on either end. That's it for this entire floor. And it was quiet. We figured, what's going on? So half of us went to one door, and the other half went to the other. We knock on the door. No answer. Listen. No answer. Pete's like, "What's going on here? Is we even in the right tower?" No one was there. It turns out, so we all left. We went back, went to the casino, spent money we didn't have. And I found out later that the whole entourage of the officers and leadership council were out somewhere, and they had been out most of the evening. They didn't get back even to the presidential suite till midnight. Well, that was about 10 o'clock at night when we finally showed up. So even Pete Miller couldn't get to the presidential suite, which made me feel better as a CPCU vagabond that I couldn't get in. But if Pete couldn't get in, made me feel pretty good.
that is like that is the ultimate exclusive. Like you need if Rick Serrato were here, maybe he's watching on the live cast. His claim to fame is like the first year he comes to the annual meeting, he's like, "Look, buddy, I'm just sticking with you." He said, "I'm just going to get all the invites through you." He said, "That's what I'm going to do." And like, he wouldn't leave me alone because he didn't want to be somewhere else while there was an invite extended, just in case like he didn't get the invite by proxy, you know? Yes, there were many I would say scandalous evening. Well, maybe not that scandalous, but just very late, lots of adult beverages consumed kind of evenings in those suites.
Yes.
Which, by the way, I think one of Heather's top memories of annual meetings past probably involves Mike Cassellany, correct?
Uh-oh.
Oh yeah. No, you're talking about like how Mike got me into recognizing that, you know, my CPCU was more than just this piece of paper I was going to hang on my wall
And a vacation to Florida.
and vacation to Hawaii,
Yeah.
you know, because I'll say it straight up. I was selfishly motivated to get myself and a bunch of my friends to Hawaii together and have a lot of fun. And then I show up at that new designee event where we're playing games. I think they had Plinko, and they took pictures of you in the grass skirt and all of that. And then I just meandering around, walk up to the table with the guy in the white T-shirt, and he stands there and he was like, "So, now that you got your designation, what are you going to do with it?" And I was like, "I'm getting ready to go hang out in Hawaii for a while."
There's a happy hour in about 30 minutes.
I'm probably going to hit up, but he got my wheels turning for sure, and got me on that path that has pretty much been history ever since then. So, but definitely, I would say there's quite a few memories that I personally have. But I'm gonna toss it to Abby. Abby, what's your absolute favorite memory of an annual meeting interest?
So I actually also have a Mike Cassellany story that I was going to share. It's a weird coincidence. So my first annual meeting.
Wait. Why does this
Okay,
Why does this sound like a Mike Cassellany roast?
I think that's perfect. That's really perfect.
You don't even know if my story is good or bad about you, though.
It's like
You
quiet.
don't know where it's going. You don't know.
We'll give you the benefit of the doubt, Abby.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate your trusting me. So my first annual meeting was 2013 in New Orleans after I got my designation. And I am happy to admit that I knew nothing when I got there. So I went to my conferment and I was there alone. I didn't come with anybody. I was single at the time, so I went to the ceremony, super pumped in New Orleans. And then I walk into the conferment reception afterwards, and you guys, like, it looked like prom. Like, it looked like prom, like all the candles and the band and everybody's partnered up, except people are drinking. So I guess not quite prom, but I'm like so intimidated by this, right? Because I know, man. I know, drinking in the open with the bars around the room. So I'm like super intimidated because, again, I know, like, the only person I knew who was going to be in New Orleans was one woman I had met one time from my local chapter. Otherwise, I'm like lost. So I do a couple laps to the ballroom, and I don't see her, and I don't really find like a good way to break in because everybody's got like food and a drink and they're in a little table. And I'm just like, okay, I'm going to give up and I'm going to do New Orleans tomorrow. I'm going to go to my room and like get room service and whatever. We'll do this tomorrow. So, but I was at the far end of the ballroom right by a bar. So I'm like, I'm going to bring a glass of wine back to my room to do that. So I stop and I get wine. And when I leave the bar, I turn around and I run into the woman who I knew. And I'm like, oh my God, the one woman that like I knew in this event. So I like run over to her and introduce myself again and like cling to her. And so I'm talking to her for a few minutes and she's with a few other people. And I say to her and this group of people, I read in the brochure tonight in the conferment that the CPCU Society is international. And I really want to work internationally. That, was part of my MBA. And like, I'm just super excited to like learn more about that. And I had no idea that the society was international. And so it turned out that the people that we were standing with were going to the 3IG cocktail that night, which is the International Insurance Interest Group. So there's always an after party after the conferment. And so they brought me with them. And that's where I met a lot of folks. And I was hanging out with Dan Hess most of the night, if you guys know our friend Dan from Zurich. And Dan said to me, we're going to the presidential suite later. So once we close down this party, you need to come with us to that party. I'm like, okay, I don't know what's going on, but all right, we'll do that. So we're at this bar for a while, and eventually we leave. We finally find cabs, and a bunch of us go back to the presidential suite. We go up there, we're drinking some more, and I, at some point, end up separated from the 3IG crowd, and I'm kind of just wandering around this room. Somebody's playing the piano, and Mike Caselny is standing at the dining room table with another gentleman, and he looks over at me, and I'm still wearing my badge. And it has the newbie ribbon on it, the new designee white ribbon, I'm still wearing, I'm probably the only one in the badge, And he goes, hey, newbie, what are you doing up here? And I'm like, I don't know. Dan, I came with 3IG and, and so I came over and I started talking to him and he like just made me feel super welcome. And then every time after that, he always like made sure to remember who I was. And I probably was like the, 5,000th new designee he had met in New Orleans, but he seemed to remember me. And I was like, just felt really like, it was cool to be in the president's suite, but then to like meet new people and then to have friends that kind of move forward with me. So it was kind of a cool way to meet Mike. So that was one of my early CPCU annual meeting stories. I'm sure, right? Oh, and it's a nice one. It's a nice one.
Were you talking about this?
Nice badge.
Right, with white ribbon. New designee.
Wait. There's like fine print in between those two lines on that badge that says, "Please sign me up for something."
You're in the headlights. I'm an open target with a new designee badge. We do it now, right? You run to them and you try to recruit them, but it was
It worked.
Shot of water.
Totally
awesome.
Worked. Look what I got. I got you hooked.
You did.
Ply them with drinks and then get them to volunteer for something. That's the way it goes.
You have to make the ask, right?
You gotta say no.
You gotta ask.
The worst year ever. Talk about name badges. The worst year ever was when they had the machine that printed them, and the type was so small I couldn't read names. I didn't know anybody. Because the first thing I'd focus on is name badge. Oh, Andy, how are you? Oh, Heather, how are you? Like we were long lost friends.
Well, so
you guys were. Trust me.
So Sharon. We are lucky enough to have Sharon Coaches with us, who is the current president of the CPCU Society. So thank you very much, Sharon, for your fearless leadership. please redeem us. Hopefully you have a memory that doesn't involve late night alcoholism.
Well, I guess I'm just kind of boring. Having worked at the institutes and how I was at a lot of the annual meetings, I had a different perspective. But one of the funniest things is everyone thought I was Brian Savko's wife because Michelle never came to the annual meetings. And so he and I would go to all these things. And I can remember being at a dinner one night and the waitress came over and asked me a question. And I looked at her and it was like, well, how about your husband? And I went, what? No. And so, but everybody thought I was Brian's wife because we hung out together so much. But, I had to work at those, most of those annual meetings, working for the institutes at the time. But they tell me now, like Brian tells me, I'm not allowed to go hiking by myself because not the last Hawaii trip, but the time before that, I actually fell down the mountain and then had to walk. And yeah, that was a little freaky, but I had all these scratches all over from all the thorns. And so going to the annual meeting, trying to walk, right? But, I have so many memories, good memories of spending time with so many good people and meeting so many people. I did not go to my annual meeting. I did not go to my conferment, but I have really spent a lot of good time with a lot of great people. And I just love the interaction. And that's one of the things I miss this year. Tom didn't have it last year. This year is really traveling around and getting to talk to people personally. I think these are great, but it doesn't replace being there in person. So sorry, but my time, I'm a little boring. What can I say?
No, that's okay. I hope you've recovered.
I did.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I wasn't the one they called the ambulance on. Apparently, someone got hurt. So.
Oh man. Yes. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
Karen, you get the CPCU annual meeting survivor badge. Is what you get for that.
Oh.
All right, I'll give you the choice, Heather. You want to go Martin or Precious? You flip the coin.
Let's go with Martin.
Okay, we'll go Martin. Precious will bring the house down, I'm sure. So. All right, Martin. What did you got? So something R-rated, hopefully, or less.
Well, I can hear you guys know my CPCU events, other than a number of rather alcohol-driven moments and different things of that nature. I still think one of the best times I did have was with Don Gordon, and he invited us to go to the distillery when we were in Colorado for the leadership meeting. So that was a lot of fun. Now, on the more RX-rated areas, I mean, I've gone to a RIMS in San Diego where we lost some people in Tijuana for 2 or 3 days, and we had to find them. There was that circumstance. So we did find them. They were okay. A little shocked at some of the things they'd experienced, but other than that, they were good. So we've had those sort of moments. I
don't know if we've ever lost at anyone. Have you ever, Mike and Sharon? Have you ever heard of anyone getting lost, unintentionally?
I had another insurance event. I think it was RIMS too, and they had at the same time in New Orleans. They had a wife sharing a conference too. Going on as well at the same time, couple sharing, not wife, but couple sharing. And
I was going to say,
so
wow.
There was a lot of activity, and a number of people didn't really bother going to a lot of the insurance after our times drinking. They found other areas to go and play.
I would wonder what the event insurance application is like for that.
A lot of people had a lot of of fun. There was an increase in divorce rates after that. People had a lot of fun there.
CPCU just went like, gee.
Okay, I'll give you one that was a little different. I insured the World Cup and all of that. I was at one of the matches, and I was there when we had one of our claims. And what it was a lady was flattened by a horse, and basically the horse had dehydrated and just fell over sideways.
And she got caught under it. Oh my God.
She got caught under it. Yeah.
Yeah. I can remember as someone who went to school down in New Orleans. I went to Mardi Gras all 4 years that I was in college there. And one of the years, a buddy of mine from New Jersey came down, and it's open container. Well, I mean, it used to be completely open container wherever you went. And so we brought a jug of our favorite stuff with us onto the parade route and our little folding chairs and some disposable solo cups. And we just sat there and drank from our cooler and watched the parade go by. And we got to the point where we couldn't necessarily defend ourselves. Like, we could just sit there and smile pretty much. And there was a point in time where, like, the parades will stop in front of you, where they have to wait for the far end of the parade to, like, make a turn or, like, clear the end of the parade route. So the parade stops, and there's this mounted patrol, like a color guard that's near us. I forget if it was, like, the state sheriffs or something like that. And the horses are massive. Like, I don't know how to measure a horse. I think, Abby, maybe you, like, ride, like, it's the number of hands high or whatever, right?
Which is 4 inches. Yeah.
I don't know how many hands these horses were, but, like, when you look up, they were, like, giants, right, to the shoulder. One of them got spooked next to basically a crowd of 1,000 people in the median, and the horse's rear end started to swing through the crowd. And me and my buddy are sitting right here, and the horse's rear end stops right there next to us. Mm-hmm. And we were so out of it that we could just look at it and go, well, that's going to suck if it doesn't stop. And then after that, they had to stop the parade and everything like that. So we had to go find somewhere else to drink. But no, it was a good evening.
I remember.
I was lucky enough. We had somebody go live in New Orleans for a while, a friend. And he was down there for a couple of years. So we actually built a float one year. A whole bunch of us, friends from the insurance industry, we went and built an insurance float. It wasn't anything on insurance on it. It was just a bloody float. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. And having to be on that float all day. Like, you're not on it for just an hour or two. You're on it all day, pretty much.
Yeah. It's a marathon. It's a marathon.
Yeah, and the one thing I didn't do, though, I'm glad I didn't do it, was they brought all this food onto the float. Well, of course, it's hot as hell, right? It doesn't matter that it was cooked food. It's still going to go bad quick, And, yes, there was a number of people that didn't sleep that night and had to go sit somewhere for a long time. So...
Well, I'm pretty sure Precious could tell us a ton about Mardi Gras in Louisiana, being a Southern girl through and through, and a Louisiana girl.
There's a part of me, this is Heather. How do I go after Martin? Like, that's not even fair.
I'm not even done. I can keep going.
So I will say that
there was a convention when people were getting kind of bored. There's another insurance thing. It's NACA. People were getting kind of boring and stuff, and we do all these seminars. So I did one year where everybody had to dress up into something. So I had on, what's his name?
Michael Jackson?
Agent. No, oh God, what's his name?
Mike Myers.
I love you, babe. Mike Myers, right?
Yes.
So I was dressed up with him. And I actually found a frilled shirt that was about 4 sizes too small for me. So everything's sort of bulging out. No undershirt on, of course. And then lots of hair coming out and just go nuts. And we had a grand old time. Anyway, it was so popular. I had people at the hotel coming up and asking if they could have it. And I did. I donated it to somebody at the hotel. So.
They think it's boring.
I'm glad that went the direction that it did, because I didn't want to have to like pull the plug on Martin's feet or anything.
Oh, there's added tidbits there, but we'll leave that alone.
You
All
had
right,
your
Precious.
hand on it though, didn't you, Matt? You were ready.
The button's hovering. I'll tell you, it's hovering.
So I also didn't go to my conferment, so it's kind of interesting because, in the Dallas chapter, annual meetings usually reserved for just the president to attend, so that they can, engage with the new designees, like to catch them early, get them to stick and stay. But the only annual meeting that I went to was New Orleans. And the only reason that I went is because one of our new designees here in Dallas, Matthew Maxwell, that was the year that he conferred. And, I shared with him that, I'm a Louisiana girl and New Orleans is actually my college town. So, so we were kind of exchanging notes on all the culinary stuff. And he's a huge Emeril Lagasse fan. And so I said, hey, you know what? I haven't been, I was president-elect, I think, that year. And so the board, agreed that, it made sense for me to go as well, since I would be the one who, be president during the year that, these new designees were really coming on board. So we get down there and basically what I encouraged him prior to us going was that the thing that I love about these events is you get outside of just the local chapter. Even though we love our chapter and the leadership, so many CPCUs, whatever is local to them is kind of their impression of the society. And so I'm like, you go to these things and that's really what it's designed to do, is kind of give you a taste of the bigger picture, And so I said, I'll go and I'll be like your personal guide through this. I'll kind of show you the who's who, introduce you, kind of navigate this space. So of course, the, conferment and, the after reception. And he was like, hey, I don't know how, committed you are to kind of just stay and mix and mingle, but I actually got a reservation at one of the Emerald restaurants and I wanted to go there for dinner, so I was like, okay, yeah, we can kind of hang out and then we'll, break off and go, to the restaurant. So we catch an Uber, we get over to this restaurant and, of course, still dressed up from the reception or whatever. And we're talking to the waiter and explaining to him what brings us to town, CPCU. Well, interesting, bizarre fact. So the waiter says that his father was a CPCU. So we have this whole conversation about CPCU, and then lo and behold, I kid you not, I think we had maybe placed our, drink order or whatever, and we turn around and we see a table being seated. Well, apparently Pete Miller, they also decided to get away and apparently got a reservation at the same Emerald restaurant that evening. And so, that was kind of the highlight, because we got a selfie with Pete before we ditched the reception. But while we were there, it's like, speaking of which, CPCU, that table over there, those guys, that's, you want to make sure you take care of them. So, but yeah, I've been to multiple leadership summits, but the feeling is different, right? Because the leadership summit, we're coming together to kind of, iron sharpening iron and, kind of getting best practices from what's going on around the country. The energy from annual meeting, when these people, this is their brand new first impression of what we do, and this is where a lot of them are going to make the decision on whether or not they stick around or not, so putting the best face, forward and those sort of things. But no, I enjoyed every bit of it, and you see all these people that like Sharon was saying, we engage with one another, we, do all these things, from wherever we house all year long. And then I remember, I think when I ran into Heather, in the lobby and she's like, Precious! So getting that chance to connect and, beyond just whatever our profiles look like and talk about, kind of really bond with people. I think that has a lot to do, but let me just detract a little bit. I went and I personally championed for Matthew in that meeting, right? I introduced him to people and that sort of thing. And some of the feedback that I got just from other designees that were there was that it really did feel like, to Abby's point, if you didn't have an inside track, if you don't have somebody who's basically sponsoring you through that event, someone that you can cling to that tells you about the next, secret meetup somewhere, that the experience, it doesn't feel the same, obviously depending on if you're there by yourself with absolutely no heads up on what's going on, and you kind of ride the more PG track of what's happening, then you come back to the next one. And so, yeah, so that's one thing that I think, just as a society, we just have to be, aware of, is that some people are there and they need that welcome. So versus it being a reunion for those of us who hang out all the time, we just have to make sure that you're seeing that person with that ribbon and going out of your way and saying, hey, come party with us.
Yeah. We need inter-risk tour guides is what we really need, and we need to make sure that we get somebody paired up who's brand new with, brand new into the society, bring them in, and just, we'll be directing traffic and hold up the flag as get people to follow you and your tour group and everything. It's a fantastic idea. And I think that charges on all of us. The next time that we all get together to make sure that we do that for the new designees. Because I'll tell you, being in my conferment and being in Hawaii, it was overwhelming. Because first of all, it was just a really odd location. Everything was kind of spread out all over the place, and it was like I don't know. I mean, I know people here, and I'm trying to find those people, and we'll just kind of move around together in a little group. But it was a bunch of us designees that had gotten our designation at the same time, and we're like, okay, we're going to go meet up over here, or we're going to go to this thing, or we're going to go to that. There wasn't that sense that I knew what to do. And but I will say, like New Orleans, the last annual meeting that we got to have together, there was a special vibe about that particular event. And it was because of the new designees that were there. I mean, it was just incredible, like their energy and their engagement and how excited that they were to be a part of that. Because, and it was because of people like you, Precious, because you stepped out there and said, I'm gonna take you under my wing, and I'm gonna show you the path and show you the way that you need to go.
Oh yeah, that's crucial. We had a not even a new designee. We had a scholarship kid from New Jersey and Central Jersey. Was a college kid, and to this day he's involved in the chapter. He doesn't even work in the insurance industry right now, but he's trying to get involved in it. But to this day, like, he graduated, he's still going to get his master's, but he's involved in our I-Day committee. He's going to help us set up classes for future college kids. So like, having him, like, bringing him along, we had to kind of sneak him into a couple of places because he was underage, but don't worry, he didn't imbibe or anything. I had to promise his parents that I would take care of him and bring him back in one piece. So let me put you all on the spot here. Your favorite info sessions, like your either favorite topic that was covered, or just favorite because of the way it was presented. What are some of your highlights? I love the emerging risks one, because it's always something where they're talking about something that's often left field that you don't even think about. Like, what's going to be the next asbestos, right? Is it going to be food additives? Is it going to be microplastic particles? Is it going to be, a Roundup or some other kind of like off the shelf, widely used product, like those kind of things. So I always thought that was extremely interesting. Let's see, who was Abby? You want to go first?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me? I think my mic cut out before.
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, perfect. So we've done a couple sessions over the years through like 3IG, working maybe with other groups on maybe some maybe taboo type risks. So in New Orleans, we did one on the ethics of risks like coal and tobacco and the NRA and that type of thing, and insurers who are divesting from those types of risks. And a couple years before that, I think it was in Indianapolis, we had a panel with about climate change. We had a gentleman from the UN who came, and we had a NASA scientist, and just super interesting to talk about those types of global risks and how our industry is doing things to try to make a difference in the world. So those are the sessions that really excite me, and that kind of get me thinking about how our industry can do good, more good in the world.
Awesome. What about you, Sharon?
I always try and sneak into the student sessions, but then they look at me and go, well, you're not a student. What are you doing here? Right. But that always invigorates me. I mean, besides what you and Abby were speaking about, it's those student sessions because I love to hear their perspective on things. And I normally do get into trouble because a lot of the professors that aren't there will say, hey, check in on my students, and I'll go around asking for them, and then they get a little nervous, right? It's like, why are you looking for me? I said, well, your professor told me to say hello and introduce myself. So, they get excited. But that always invigorates me because I just love the energy and I love the questions and, keep having those conversations about making sure that they're curious and that they're reaching out and asking questions to all of us and, reach out to us and help them. So that's my favorite part of it.
I love that. You keeping them scared straight, right? Like keep them in line, right? Make sure that they're paying attention.
Yes.
What about you, Martin? What was one or a couple of your favorite sessions?
It's hard because I've been doing this for a long time, and I didn't get to go to my, conferment session either, but I'd say the things I enjoy the most is I love international politics. I love international issues of doing insurance. I've been able to. I love teaching my underwriters the difference between looking at something from pure insurance perspective and then looking at it from what you can do overseas and what you can't do. Like I try to explain to them, there's a difference between having coverage and legally having coverage, right?
Yeah.
So you can have Brazil covered on your policy. Great. Won't do you any good if your property's damaged down there. You got to have local insurance. So
yeah,
the insurance company's not allowed to pay you.
Yeah.
So it's sort of different things like that to take a look at, and I've had the great pleasure of dealing with a lot of really unusual things. We can talk about how we can deal with moral turpitude issues. I've done a lot of moral turpitude insurance, and how Axl Rose is a much better risk than Tiger Woods. So now Tiger Woods is a great risk from a moral turpitude perspective.
Well, he's not moving anywhere.
No, right, yeah. But I meant he's already a bad boy. He can't do much else to surprise anybody.
Yes.
And that. So that is and creating. Right? I find frustrating within the insurance industry at times is that the creativity is squashed, and it's more and more is it being squashed by the computers and the data and everything else. I mean, I was talking to a group of high school kids yesterday, and I said, when I grew up doing this, I was taught by my father and everybody else that an insurance policy is a living document. It breathes, it moves, and it can work its way into different places. Right now, it's a rigid piece of paper, and I kind of miss that. It was, you could make a lot of deals, you could do a lot of different things, and there's still some of that alive. And some people, with the market right now changing more towards the MGAs, I think we could see an explosion of some creativity occurring.
Yeah.
The insurance companies really have a hard time being creative, especially if they're trying to be a specialty company and trying to be regular commercial or personal.
Yeah.
They just have a hard time with it.
Yeah. And I think some of that creativity comes into the sessions in terms of, just talking about new products that are being put out there by some of the companies, or, different kind of twists. Oh, we got the attack dog. Some new twists that are just showing up because of technology or new business, new ways of doing business and things like that, or even new personal risks. Like drones has been a big thing over the last couple of years, because they went from these like little hobbyists at home that had them to now mass production for like individuals, and then big commercial usage, even a lot of the insurance companies using them.
Well, even model cars. Even model cars now become a high risk.
Yep.
And because they can go faster than you intend them to go, and that means they can cause more damage, and you can set them up to do more damage.
Yeah.
So I mean, the drones are, as you said, can be even more of a problem.
Yeah. Especially when you start attaching flamethrowers to them and taking care of paper wasp nests in your yard. Apparently, that's not a good thing. What about you, Heather? What are some of your favorite sessions from the past, either content or delivery?
Definitely I'm a courtroom junkie, so I always love the Clue like reenactments of court cases. Those just they keep me rolling because you get some really good dramatic actors in there that can, play things up and everything. I've really always enjoyed those. And then, of course, there's so much like leadership and professional development for sessions that we have all of the time that you don't even know how to pick from all of them. But have always enjoyed, like Rita Williams-Bogar's sessions. She's fantastic for professional development. And then, I think some of my favorite memories are often those really small events and small sessions that we have during Leadership Summit, because they really open your eyes to the volunteer opportunity that's in front of everybody who's a CPCU. And if you just engage with it, you can find a role, you can find a place, you can find a niche, and you can fit in. And you learn so much from the experience of other people who have led their chapters or led in an IG and done those types of things for so long. I think those are often my favorite, just because they're oftentimes smaller. There's not quite so many people there, and the camaraderie is there because you're there with a whole bunch of other people who are volunteer leaders, just like you.
Oh yeah. No. The Clue one. No, was it the Clue ones? What was the one that had the wizard? Someone dressed up as a wizard one year. Was that a Clue one, or was that?
I think it's the Clue because they did the courtroom drama thing, and they typically do the courtroom drama. And I think they did have the wizard one year for sure. I do remember the wizard.
And I'm trying to remember. Oh, one of my favorite ethics. Like most people think, like ethics is a snoozer. Like you just go there, and especially if you're a broker, you just like check the box because you're supposed to get like 3 CEs every 2 years to renew your license. Ethics is boring. Like no one makes it interesting. Rita actually, I forget if she did one in conjunction with Denise Brown or if she did it on her own. But she did one where she had like the software where you could do like real-time polling during the session, and she could show it up on the screen so you could see how it like tabulates. And what she did was she went through a number of different kind of like moral hypothetical questions that had to do with like insurance industry scenarios and had people answer. And then what she did was she did like an open forum where everyone would talk about like, well, I answered this way because, and I answered this way because, and then she would resurvey everyone after people kind of like gave their thoughts on it to see how it changed. And like some of them were dramatic where, one way it was like you thought that you would never do it or it wasn't a good thing. And then all of a sudden, because of people's explanations, you're like, oh, wow, like I should change it. And the entire room changes, really kind of like talking about the relativistic nature of, ethics and how those things kind of are very situation and perspective dependent sometimes was really interesting. So there have been some fantastic sessions. Favorite, not social like drinking function, but favorite kind of like aspect of the annual meeting outside of those two things, like sessions, extracurricular activities, kind of like favorite aspects that get melded also into the annual meeting. So like one of my favorites was the social media wall that has now become a mainstay where you can see what people are live tweeting about the annual meeting and get, I always go up there because I'm not necessarily looking for the comments. I'm looking for people to follow so that I can then troll them on social media. But those kind of like nuancy things, the things that are in the middle. What would you say, Sharon? What's your favorite in that one?
That's hard. Again, for me, it's the people. It really is the people. And so I love being able to go in with the new designees or go in with the students, and it's just, for me, it's that relationship driven, and just continuing to meet new people and help them come along through the sessions, right?
Yeah.
So and it's funny, Matt, because I love that wall, but I don't even think about those things. It's, and the last couple of years for me have kind of been a blur, so it's
I'm sure.
But it's hard for me to think about some of those things. It's just, I'm always looking for the people to have conversations with and say, what can we do? How do we do things better? And that type of situation.
Fair enough. What about you, Martin? Anything that gets added into the mix that you think is worth note there?
Well, obviously the people are the favorite part. This is one of the main reasons you go. What I've enjoyed outside of that is especially when you go somewhere you haven't been before and you haven't experienced this, one, experiencing the local areas. I mean, and whether it's the CPCU or any other association puts on tours or things of that nature. Like some of the walking tours, even in New Orleans, can be a lot of fun. And one of the things I love doing, wherever
me and Heather can tell a story about walking tours in New Orleans. I'll tell you that much.
There you go. But one of the things,
go on there, Matt.
So, like, one of the things that I like to do when I go places is to ask, the people, the concierge, okay, this is where you send all the tourists. This is where you send everybody. Where do you go? I want to know where you go. And you can end up with some great places. And the best moments I probably had of exploring was in Havana, Cuba, and they started sending me to these restaurants way out of town, and it was basically somebody's living room and porch, and they'd have a set menu. There might be 2 or 3 items to choose from, but that was it. And you got to sit there with a whole bunch of Cubans and just experience them and be with them, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, there was definitely a couple of those opportunities in New Orleans. I know that much. The downtown area was, the very touristy area, but there were a ton of places to go outside of that, especially further uptown, that you could go hang out and kind of like get some of the other side of the culture. That ability. Look, our annual meetings are typically somewhere that has culture that you can, go kind of like round out your time and really kind of see how people live or lived in a different part of the country. I think that's a fantastic aspect.
Even when my employees would go, we try, if they didn't have holiday or anything else, it's like stay an extra day, stay an extra half day.
Yeah, most definitely.
And experience it without all the rest of it. Just go and be there.
Yeah. What about you, Heather?
Well, I think that I think I'm with Sharon. It's the people piece of it, but I'm also a culture nut about the places that I go. So I try to find like the most off the beaten path or the most interesting restaurant or cool place to look at that you're not going to see in the tourist trap places. When you go to annual meeting, I remember New Orleans, we went to, Willie Mae's Scotch House, I believe, that and it had been like gutted pretty bad by Hurricane Katrina, and a whole group of, you found out a story when you went there that a whole group of restaurateurs around the United States banded together to rebuild that place so that they could continue having business. And because it's over there in the Ninth Ward, and it's not in the, it's in a place that really has struggled to recover from Katrina. And then, of course, obviously, being connected to the Claims Interest Group, Claims Interest Group has some pretty raucous, amazing, get-togethers during annual meeting. But Marty Frapoli used to be our Institute's representative, and obviously he knows pizza better than any other person on this planet.
Yeah.
And every time you would go somewhere, Marty would give you the right recommendations for what city you were in for pizza. Well, when we were in New Orleans, and I was thinking, we're going to have pizza in New Orleans? Really? Like, that's not what New Orleans is famous for. Oh my gosh. I felt like I was going to melt from the table because this was the greatest gourmet pizza I have ever had in my entire life. And it was way off the beaten path, way away from everything else. And we were treated to our general session speaker, Mike Massimo, the NASA astronaut, showed up at that restaurant and sat right behind our group, and we all fangirled and went crazy and taking pictures with him and everything. And we're like, we just completely interrupted his little quiet dinner that he was having with his son here, but we felt entitled because we're like, we're not CPCU. But that's definitely one of my favorite parts of it, is just exploration, and then those moments where you really get to connect with people, and get to know people that are just outside of the normal circle that you hang with. So.
Oh, most definitely.
May I add too, is one of the things that I find so amazing, having the very good fortunes of being able to travel a lot to different insurance places around the world, is even with locals at times, it can be well worth your time, even though you may live in New York for 40 years or whatever, is be a tourist for a while. And do some of these things that tourists do. I remember taking a whole bunch of New Yorkers around to find speakeasies, and they didn't realize there was so many that you could go find in New York, and some really cool ones.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can have fun with it.
I'm a big advocate of acting like a tourist in your hometown or territory or region or wherever you call home, because you get so used to seeing the same surroundings or going on the same routes. I mean, we are creatures of habit typically, that it just really helps to kind of like act like you don't know the place. And where would I go if I was looking on TripAdvisor or taking someone's advice for like a homegrown kind of place. I think the other thing that I really love about the annual meetings is there's always a host chapter. So it's always a chapter that, you're getting to know specifically the people that, live and work there in that geographic area. And that comes along with that host chapter is an opportunity to give back, right? So there's typically a donation component and maybe even a volunteering component that comes with it, which is always absolutely fantastic because, we're not just like Locust. We don't just descend on a city and drink all their booze and good food and then leave. We actually give back a little bit to the community and help some people and in the true nature of insurance folks, do the altruistic thing and kind of try and leave the place a little bit better than we found it, which I think is fantastic. So, look, we're going on an hour. I want to thank all of you. Obviously, we had some folks come and go, and some folks had to drop off early. But a huge thank you to all of you and Sharon and Martin for closing down the bar. I can tell you one of my favorite memories of New Orleans was going to the Famous Door and seeing just the incredible live music, hanging out with everyone, having a couple of drinks, and then all those lightweights went home, and I walked home at 5 o'clock in the morning with the sun coming up. So that was I think I did 2 session presentations in New Orleans, and so I had to be on my best behavior for the majority of it. That last night, I was like, all right, the chains are off. I can do whatever I want.
Well, and it goes without saying, Matt, the virtual conference that happened last year had its own little element of side fun with Tony Cañas' Zoom room that almost broke the Guinness World Record for the longest Zoom meeting ever.
That is true.
Did that shut down at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning or something at one point? And a few people were still hanging on.
I believe Precious told me 4 o'clock in the morning. She was like, I gotta go.
So talking about last night, I remember when we were at the leadership meeting in Colorado. Maureen, my wife, she hadn't ever had an edible, so we decided. I went and found the lowest dose cookies at the time. And there's a place right across from our hotel that was. You can get the edibles.
Sharon, when we go back, move the hotel.
So we had edibles just before we were about ready to get on the plane. So for me, I was fine. The good news for me was I basically slept the entire flight. That was good.
Yeah.
And then, but yeah, Maureen wasn't incredibly happy in the car on the way there. Windows were down, you know. So that's a CPCU moment there.
Well, listen, guys, I got to run. I want
Thank you very much, Sharon,
both for everything you do. You guys are awesome, and I love this broadcast. So thank you all so much.
Thanks, Sharon.
So we'll talk
Thank
to
you,
you
Sharon.
soon.
Yep.
Bye, Martin.
Thank you.
Bye, Sharon.
So that's it. That's the end of the broadcast. That went pretty well. We'll have to do this again. I'm sure that we can get more people on that have even more stories about the annual meeting. So we'll have to do this probably closer to Into Risk later on in the year. So, but anyone who is still watching, or if you made it this long on the recording, remember that we're here every single Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern live, and you can share your comments and questions, or comment and question on the recorded version, and we will make sure to get back to you. So, and if you're interested in coming on the future episode where we talk about our favorite annual meeting stories again, definitely leave that in the comments or email us, and we'll get back to you. So, Martin, Heather,
Yep, I'm out.
have a great evening.
Hello.
Now I'm going to go home and dream about annual meetings past.
Edibles.
Have a good night, all.
Thanks.